You can put it, it's an investigation, so put it in different spots around the room, see what you get.
Actually,
Do I just have to press the button?
I think it should be on, yeah, it's on. So here, let's put it up right here. Nice focal point.
Should I move this one?
So this room doesn't get a whole lot of activity, I mean, usually there's not a whole lot of activity in here, but as Andy just said on the last investigation, they were asking, so what happened exactly?
So we asked like 3 different questions, after we could have spent about 5 minutes talking about the history of the room
Right.
and telling them 1 or 2 stories. We then went around the circle and asked some questions, and after each one, 3 in a row, within reasonable time, they balled it up.
Really?
Like a response.
What were the questions?
First one was, is anybody here in the room with us? I think was the first one, balled it up.
Right.
And then the subject came up that Eliza spoke French, and we actually had a guy in the group that was from France, so he spoke French and asked a question in French, like, did you enjoy Paris?
Yeah.
And it lit up. I think the other one was, do you understand French? It came before, did you
Yeah.
enjoy Paris? But after all 3, balled it up.
Yeah. So people, yeah, that's what you keep hearing, it's sneaky. So people often ask what leads to a haunting, right? Like the story is always, it's like someone from the 1800s in a big abandoned house, and you know that's a stereotype, but that doesn't always have to be that. I mean, certainly hospitals, prisons, apartment buildings, schools are very common. Cemeteries, not really, because the idea is that a spirit is gonna, if there is such a thing as ghosts, they're gonna kind of cling on to where they had good times, not where their body is. You know, there's also some natural elements that are common denominators. So like granite, quartz, graphite, you know, anything, anytime you see those in the foundation, large bodies of naturally running water, electrical storms, things like that. So these are all like things that kind of contribute to a place being haunted. And then obviously, you know, what's the history of the place if it's got a dark energy? But at the same time, a place like this, you know, this place had parties and it had galas and it had, you know, and to this day we have weddings and plays and, you know, stuff like that. So we try to keep it culturally alive and relevant. And we feel like that gets just as much activity as something that would be negative. Obviously the house did have a bit of a darker side. So the Morrises would have had slaves, but not the Jumels. And from what we could understand, you know, they were treated pretty well. You know, obviously they were working very hard here. It wasn't a pleasant experience, but it wasn't horrendous based upon the documentation that we have back and forth from Roger and Mary. But the Jumels did not have slaves. They would have had servants, and they would have been, if not people of color, they would have been German and Irish descent as well. The Jumels didn't have slaves, and we don't know if it was like a moral thing, or the fact that Stephen, being that he's French and his family like went through the Haitian slave uprising, kind of like would have scared him. So it could be that too. We don't have any documentation about that. One thing though is that Anne Northrop, wife of Solomon Northrop, from 12 Years a Slave, did work at the house. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions or anything like that?
Any cool stories about like famous people chilling in this room?
I mean,
Or most rooms just like people walk chilled out. Like
yeah, I mean, you gotta
Washington
think about it. So the house was built for entertaining. So what you see right here was pretty unique for the house, for the time the house was built. This would have been a serving alcove, so they would have come up, drop the stuff off, and then bail out from that. They didn't have to go out through there. So, you know, they built the house to be full-time service, almost like a hotel. I'm just trying to see if I made that. I heard something from this side. I'm trying to see if I did that. It's probably me. But I mean, as far as famous people, as I said, there was that big cabinet dinner where he had Hamilton, Jefferson, Washington, Adams, Knox. Yeah. So, shall we head upstairs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
We're gonna
we
tell some
have
ghost
one
stories
bar.
after.
We have 1 bar battery.
Really? Communicate to meter up to the painting.
Oh, wow.
Who is this?
So this is Wilhelm von Hest. He was the commander of the Hessian army. Now let's go over to Eliza.
This was very
It's
beautiful.
going crazy.
This is an oil painting from the 1800s. She had this done in Rome. So nothing electrical about it. Look at Tiffany's.
Yeah, it's
Who's
crazy.
this?
That's her adopted granddaughter. So that's Eliza Jr.
And who's that?
William Chase, the grandson. So the story between these three is that when he gets a little older and the grandmother Eliza gets a little crazier, he comes to the house with a woman that he wants to marry. He says, listen, I want your approval. And she says, well, for whatever reason, she says, it's either the girl or your inheritance. And he chooses the girl. So Eliza immediately writes him out of the will. She puts a black veil over this portion of the painting, cuts him out of the will.
It stayed straight on red
Yeah.
for a long time.
Cuts him out of the will. She passes away. He comes over to his sister and he goes, okay, she's dead. Let's split this up. What do I get? She goes, no.
That's not.
You made your decision. You knew what was
Turn
at
that
stake.
skink over us.
Yeah, exactly. So he then sues her, goes all the way up to Supreme Court, and in order to pay for the legal fees, she had to start selling off the artwork and the land, and eventually it got reduced to what we have today.
All because of the petty.
Because he got written out of the will.
So whatever happened to him
I don't know.
and the girl?
I don't know. You'd have to ask someone much smarter than me.
Could there be any other, like, thing with it, like, that they used to make the paint or something that might be?
I mean,
Behind
again,
the wall?
this picks up EMF fields, not vibrations, not oil, not anything like
That's
that.
picking up their spirits. Well, their energy.
I mean, kind of like the furniture in the other room. I'm not saying it's definitely a ghost, but it's definitely interesting that there's something residual enough on here to make these go off.
Right.
Now, the thing about ghost hunting tools is, like, if you watch any of the shows, it's really a bad example of what ghost hunting is. Because, first of all, they go to a location and they're there for 12 hours, 3 days sometimes, and then they only get a tiny bit of evidence. And then they got to cut that down to 42 minutes because, an hour-long show with commercials, and they could throw in some, effects and some music, and any one of us could have a ghost show, right?
Mm-hmm.
What they don't show you is that it's just a lot of just sitting in rooms for hours in the dark.
Waiting.
Waiting, exactly. The other thing is that they use a lot of tools that have not been really tested yet. Like they use a lot of like apps or like spirit pucks or like, things like that like kind of like decipher and go through like white noise. And it's supposed to be that like when you hear like a word or a phrase, whatever, that's a spirit communicating. And there's a lot of things like that. Now, unless I'm missing something, no one that I know has a ghost in a lab somewhere that they construct a thing, they test it on that thing, they get a positive reaction, and then they sell it on eBay, right? So they're just making things based off of theory. The thing about what we use, the tools, is I know what this does, right? I know what a REM pod does. I know what a flashlight does. I know what those light sensors do, right? They weren't made for ghost hunting. And sometimes the best tools are just eyes and ears as well. Make sense?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to leave that REM pod right there. We're going to head upstairs. I'm going to check out upstairs, all right? You want this?
Oh, sure. This thing's crazy.
So check that out. Check that out. Tiffany, how's yours going?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Going nuts in my room.
I got the little vibration ball.
this is where the magic happens, huh?
Yeah.
So
Some
this,
people.
so why does Aaron Burr have his own mattress in here?
His own mattress?
Is this where they slept?
So this would have been Steve, Roger Morris's room.
Oh.
This would have been Stephen Jamel's bedroom. Would have been Aaron Burr's bedroom. During the Revolution, the officers would have stayed in these rooms down here. Soldiers would have stayed upstairs on the 3rd floor, probably in the basement as well. And so the beds are in here. I believe this is on loan from King Manor, which is another historic house. But it's just to represent that what the room would have been used for. Yeah, absolutely. It's not actually a mattress. It's just like a giant bag stuffed with hay or packing peanuts. What is interesting is that about a year ago, I was leading a private investigation, and I noticed right here, it looks like an ass indent, like someone was getting out of bed. In this room is where we captured that EVP that I showed you guys earlier.
Where were you guys stationed?
Well, in the video, we're all over, like we were just setting up the room. So I believe the camera was set up over here when it was captured.
It's over here.
Wow.
I always make it a point to say that on all of our investigations. Nothing that you're seeing is fake, hoaxed, rigged, or anything like that. It's always straightforward. We don't have people hiding out in other rooms doing fun stuff.
Have you guys measured the temperature in this room versus other rooms?
No, but you can feel it.
Yeah, you definitely feel it.
Yeah. Now, it is cold out tonight, but there's always an obvious difference in this room too. So that lamp that's right over there by Tiffany, over the last couple of months, that's been turning on by itself, turning on and turning off. We'll go out to the gate. At the end of the day, we'll lock up and we'll see that it's back on. A lot of light activity in this house over the last couple of months. Yeah. You know what I just thought of? I'm gonna play that EVP in here and see if that gets something.
Yeah. It's interesting, this isn't going off as much anymore.
Yep, so that's the thing is that, okay, let's just say if it was, for whatever reason, there's a high EMF level in this room, just naturally. Why isn't that going off all the time, rather than it's just fluctuating? So that shows you that something's at least passing by. Yeah. So if you notice on these investigations, I don't say, these ghosts do this, these spirits do that. It's very, I leave it open-ended for a reason. I want to leave you guys to come to your own conclusions. But yeah, so I'm gonna.
Hey, Vinny, did you turn the 3rd floor lights on? Have they been on?
They've been on.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna play the CVP and see if it invokes anything, just for shits and giggles, because I'm still really psyched about this.
Yes.
Okay. If anyone's in here with us, I was here with some friends a few weeks ago. We captured what I believe was your voice, and if you want to say anything like that again, you're more than welcome to do so. Do you recognize this?
Let's see if anything turns over here like you. Should we go to, let's see if anything turns over here like you. Should we go to, Washington room? Yeah. Let's see if anything turns over here like you. Should we go to, Washington room? Yeah, that's like that.
Was that you? If that was you, can you make this little ball light up? Let us know that you're here. Maybe make a bang out in the hallway. Move something in here. No one's here to hurt you in any way. You heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the hallway? We don't want to hurt you. Do you have something you want to tell us? Are we bothering you? We're gonna come out in the hallway. Well, fuck. That was me.
What room is this?
This would have been Washington's bedroom based off of his documents. Would have also been William Chase's bedroom, the boy from the painting. A couple months
That's a
ago.
small room for Washington.
Yep.
He's a big man too.
You
He's
didn't
like
get the
6.
master?
Yeah, I know, right? A couple of months ago, our former executive director was leaving at the end of the day. She got to right over there, and she heard what sounded like someone getting out of the bed and scurrying to the back corner of the room.
Wow.
Yep, right over there.
And Burr's room really had a lot of activity. Oh, there's 2.
Yeah.
Is there anything behind this wall other than Burr's room?
Chimneys. If you look at these globes, you could see how they're different.
I thought this was like,
Girl.
this is all right out of those.
They're coming for me.
What's in this chest?
I don't know. This is Napoleonic, so that means that it belonged to the Bonaparte family. That's how old that is.
Wow.
Yep.